Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. We have a lot to tell you about later in the show. Big announcement. But first, celebrating, not denigrating, that's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, this is the start of week 6 of President Trump's second term, and the best way to describe the policy so far, unabashedly pro-American.
We got one badass president now who's going to come in and going to take care of this border.
The fundamental goal is we want your children and grandchildren to be able to raise a family in security and comfort in the country that we all love.
He gave us a clear directive, make America safe. And that's what we're going to do.
We're at a level, I don't think we've been at this level maybe ever as the Republican Party. We're a bigger, better, stronger party than ever before. More people in our party than ever before. But the people have given us a resounding mandate for dramatic change in Washington, and we are going to deliver it. We're going to use it, and we're going to make America great again by using it.
And he got a resounding reception at CPAC over the weekend. And our friend and pollster, Mark Penn, he released a big survey today showing that by a 58-42 margin, voters believe Trump is doing a better job than Biden. Now, overall, Trump's job approval is at 52, but his two major domestic policies, the border and cutting waste, are extremely popular. Ditto for Trump's emphasis on merit over DEI and hiring. But what's the Democrats' agenda? Well, resisting and repeating their same old tired lines.
He's modeling everything upon this autocratic, authoritarian, dictatorial, king-like presence that he wants to play inside of our government.
There's been one through line with Donald Trump. It has been his willingness to do Vladimir Putin's bidding.
He's going after critical jobs to save pennies in order to give himself more room to give big tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans and the wealthiest
So that's what they
corporations.
got. That's it. That's what they got. I haven't heard any of that stuff before. Now, while a majority of voters don't agree with Trump on every policy, what's key is that they do feel much more optimistic about America and the economy. It was in the low 30s, remember, for years. And while Congress remains underwater, the Democrats are in real trouble.
I think you're seeing a retrospective assessment of Biden and the direction the Democratic Party was going. It really a lot more negative than it was on Election Day. And they're looking at the contrast on immigration, on economic policy, on some of the social policies. And boy, they're reevaluating. In the Democratic Party, I have never seen anything like this. This is a record low for the Democratic Party in terms of favorability. It has fallen really, really way down. And I don't think there's any leadership right now that's going to be able to bring that back.
Now, how do you resurrect your party, though? By protecting red tape and the bureaucracy, by trying to gin up sympathy for federal workers who need to get real jobs in the real world like most of America. Ever heard of it? Now, do Democrats really think that Americans will stop liking Trump because he fires these people?
I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce, which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce and privatize public sector services.
Now, making a list of what you accomplished in a week, that's what she was whining about, is harassment and bullying? Of course, because that requires, what, 15 minutes of work? Now, these are the same types who think requiring them to return to the office where they haven't been, oftentimes for 4 years, that basically amounts to a hate crime.
I thought it was great because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? What they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And, you know, where's all that? Where's the money gone?
Now, not only is that not unfair to insist on accountability and fiscal sanity in government, but it's also deeply patriotic. Because Trump and his team are showing their love for America. Just like moms and dads try to stick to a budget, they try to save money, try to make money for their family. Trump wants the same for America at every level. But what the DC Uniparty has done for decades has been deeply unpatriotic. Printing, borrowing, and spending money like there's no tomorrow, never changing course. The result ultimately being, if they kept going the way they were going, a total collapse of the American system. That's what Elon Musk has been talking about. But Trump and his team, they celebrate America by embracing sweeping reforms.
The dark days of high taxes, crushing regulations, rampant inflation, flagrant corruption, government weaponization, and total incompetence. Those days are over. They're over. But we cannot stop now. We're going to push forward every single day. In the immortal words of that great American hero, Captain John Paul Jones, I have not yet begun to fight.
Now, the place went totally crazy at CPAC. And I thought to myself, no wonder so many young people, and I know it's mostly young men, but young women too. His numbers are up among young women. But they're excited about Trump. Think about this. This generation, the younger generation, has heard for years that America is systemically racist. They were told repeatedly to check their privilege at the door and to feel even guilty about their success, guilty about their background. How boring and depressing that message is. But Trump, he's always the candidate that always knew that America deserved and even wanted more.
I will convene a White House task force called Salute to America 250. It will be responsible for coordinating with state and local governments to ensure not just one day of celebration, but an entire year of festivities across the nation to create the Great American State Fair, a unique one-year exhibition featuring pavilions from all 50 states.
It's going to be fabulous, the 250th anniversary, now that Trump is president. Imagine under Kamala Harris, that would have been a depressing event. Now, look, there are plenty of challenges ahead, including inflation, which Trump has to tackle and tackle very smartly. And he's given us, though, a profound opportunity to reset and revive our national spirit, and he's well on his way. And by the way, don't listen to the left. This is not mindless patriotism. It's how a nation survives and thrives. And that's the angle.
What'd you do last week? If you work for the federal government and you can't answer that by midnight, you might be getting doged. This weekend, every D.C. bureaucrat got this message in their inbox. Please reply to this email with 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week, with a deadline. And if you don't answer, that's kind of your answer.
I thought it was great because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist.
I can tell you what I did last week. Worked on a federal holiday, plugged Dana's new book, pushed Doge dividend checks, you're welcome, shut down Jessica on the 5, politely, and sold some Fox merch. Cha-ching. Now, I came up with that in 5 minutes. If I had 48 hours like those federal workers do, it would have been even better. But when I was putting together the list, I was inspired. And now I've asked the entire primetime team to send me their 5 bullet points on what they accomplished last week. And the deadline's at 6 a.m. tomorrow. And we're going to send you and show you what their bullet points are tomorrow. And I'll let you know if I fired anybody. Nobody on my team was angry when I sent the email. But for some reason, federal workers are.
Tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce.
Putting together a list of accomplishments was maybe the most work some of these bureaucrats did all year. If it's that hard for you to name 5 things you've accomplished in a week, that should tell you something. And if it makes you mad or infuriated that you're being asked, that should also tell you something. It tells me a lot of these federal workers don't want to justify their jobs because they feel they're entitled. And that's a bad attitude. And that attitude's about to change. And was it just me, or did that worker sound like she was reading from a script? I think I saw her eyes moving back and forth. And what, has this woman never had a review? If the answer is no, then that's a huge problem. People are getting laid off. Tell me why you should stay. If the CEO of Bank of America asks me, Jesse, what did you accomplish last week? I don't run to CNN and cry and tell the anchor I'm mad. If I've been doing a good job, I'm psyched for the opportunity to present my boss with a list of my amazing accomplishments so I can get a raise and a promotion and keep helping the company. You either have a winning attitude or the attitude of a loser. The winner loves the email. The loser is whiny.
This nonsensical email from Elon Musk acting like we're in kindergarten.
The new Trump administration is reveling in its bare-knuckle approach to governing.
This is so sloppy with the way Elon Musk is handling this.
Why is the media treating these workers like the CEO's spoiled brat son, who comes and goes as he pleases, drinks at lunch, and harasses the secretaries? He's untouchable. We all know the guy. The media is treating the federal workforce like they're untouchable. Oh, you can't make them come to the office. You can't fire them. You definitely can't log into their computers, and you can't email them on a weekend. These are public servants. They're supposed to serve the public. When we ask, how are you serving us? That's an issue. Maybe it's because they're not serving us. They're serving themselves. Journalist Chris Rufo just uncovered a deep state sex chat at the National Security Agency. Chat logs show intel officials were using a chat room to share their fetishes and kinks and brag about getting sex changes. And it goes back 2 years. A transgender sex chat while they were on the clock. When you think about it, this was a taxpayer-funded transgender sex chat. Here's a taste. Viewer warning. This one guy had just had his manhood surgically removed. One of the weirdest things that gives me euphoria is when I pee. I don't have to push anything down to make sure it aims right. Here's another. Getting my blank zapped by a laser was shocking. Fine, I'll just do one more. This one guy's talking about how excited he is that the bulge is gone and he can wear bikinis after his sex change surgeries. I know. And these are intel officials. These people are in charge of guarding the nation's deepest secrets and spying on our enemies. How mentally tough are these people if they're having doctors chop off their body parts and then celebrating it on a work computer? Do you know how easy it is to blackmail somebody like that? Do you know how China or Russia or the Iranians, what they would do if they got their hands on this? First, they'd laugh, but then they'd compromise every single one of these reckless agents. Elon asked, what did you accomplish at work last week? I sexted with my colleagues about pouring hot wax on my nipples. This is what happens when 96% of the federal workforce works from home. They're having sex change surgeries while they're working from home, and their bosses don't even know about it. I bet we paid for those sex change surgeries. And then they're all in the group chat all day. Hey, how was your operation? Mine was great. Still a little sore, but now I can live my own truth.
If you don't report to work, that's another scam. Who the hell, if I'm staying home, let's see, my golf handicap would get down to very low number. You'd be shocked if I told you the real number. But I would be so good, I'd try and get on tour. I would be so good. I'd call up, I'd say, listen, I'm really working here. Where are my clubs? Where are my clubs?
The Senate's even being put to work. Majority Leader Thune is making senators work late into the night. And ready? They're working on Fridays now. Yeah. And no surprise, senators are already complaining. They want to go home. Democrat Senator Mark Kelly, also a pilot, says he used to rent a plane and fly himself home every Friday. Alas, he's barely flown on that plane this year. He says, unless I want to do it on the weekend, and that's if I get back on the weekend. We're $36 trillion in debt because of guys like that. And they're complaining they have to work on a Friday. Not even a summer Friday, a Friday in February. USAID's been emptied out. 2,000 workers were just fired. Should have taken the buyout while you had the chance. It does make sense, though. They didn't want to leave because the gravy train was just too thick and tasty. For Haiti alone, USAID doled out $2 billion in contracts. Guess how much of that money actually went to Haiti? 2%. Only 2% of the $2 billion went to where it was supposed to. Half of it went to all of these aid groups based around D.C. You know, you can't give it to Haiti directly. They'd just steal the money. So we're going to give it to all of our liberal friends who won't steal the money, and then they'll give it to Haiti. But they didn't. Are liberals just stealing from poor black people and calling it compassion? A New York Post report says the Red Cross raised $500 million for Haiti. And that money was supposed to build homes for 130,000 people. They built 6. $500 million to build 6 homes in Haiti, where home is not really Mar-a-Lago. And here's a juicy one for you. Meet Latricia Adams. She was an advisor to the Biden White House. How she got that job, I have no idea. The Free Beacon reports that while she was working as a White House advisor, our friend Latricia applied for a contract. And not just any contract, a $20 million contract. This $20 million contract was for environmental justice. And right before Biden leaves office, he gives this $20 million contract to Latricia. Her group, Young, Gifted, and Green, got the $20 million. More like Young, Grifted, and Green. Does Latricia have any background in environmental science? No, not really. 10 years ago, Latricia was a high school Spanish teacher. She has a bachelor's in Spanish. She's based in Memphis, Tennessee, not the greenest city. And you know what Biden does? Biden audits Pete Hegseth. This lady, Latricia, screaming for an audit. We used to prosecute graft at the Department of Justice. I guess we don't anymore. Latricia can just walk out of the White House with $20 million. What did Latricia do with the $20 million? Well, we went to their website. The only thing they did last year was the Black Maternal and Environmental Health Day. They started a holiday. It's April 4th. These people look really legit. This is exactly why Trump wants to go visit Fort Knox.
We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far, and we've just started. We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there, because maybe somebody stole the gold. Tons of gold.
Finding waste, fraud, and abuse isn't even that hard. You can save money with a stroke of a pen.
ODNI itself is a pretty small organization compared to most other elements. But even in that small organization, getting rid of DEI saved American taxpayers roughly $20 million, literally with the stroke of President Trump's pen.
Not even Nancy Pelosi's Doge-proof. According to reports, Trump's looking to sell off the 18-story Nancy Pelosi federal building in San Francisco. The building's empty because HHS told its employees not to work there anymore because it's too dangerous. Pelosi's building surrounded by homeless, needles, and prostitutes. It's about time America had a house cleaning.
The fraudsters, liars, cheaters, globalists, and deep state bureaucrats are being sent packing. The illegal alien criminals are being sent home. We're draining the swamp and we're restoring government by the people, for the people.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, President Trump's effort to secure your border is working. On Saturday, border crossings, they dropped to their lowest level in 15 years. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem brings us the very latest in just a moment. Also, it is official. Vivek Ramaswamy, he has now launched his campaign for governor in the great state of Ohio, the Buckeye State. You don't want to miss out our interview with him coming up. But first, President Trump continues to work at record-breaking speed. He's showing no signs of slowing down at all. Earlier today, he hosted French President Emmanuel Macron for a meeting at the White House where the two addressed a number of topics and also expressed optimism about resolving the war between Russia and Ukraine. Let's take a look.
I've been elected by the American people to restore common sense to Washington and indeed to the world. And I believe strongly that it's in the best interest of the United States, the best interest in Europe, the best interest of Ukraine, and indeed the best interest of Russia to stop the killing now and bring the world to peace. When I got here, one of the first calls I made was to President Putin, and we were treated with great respect, and they want to end this war. So that's a big thing. I will be meeting with President Zelensky. In fact, he may come in this week or next week to sign the agreement, and which would be nice. I'd love to meet him. Would meet at the Oval Office. So the agreement's being worked on now. They're very close to a final deal. It'll be a deal with rare earths and various other things.
All right, President Trump also continues to score big wins on the economy. Remember, the left, the media mob spent months and months and months spewing doom and gloom predictions about Donald Trump and his proposed tariffs, which are now reciprocal tariffs. They tariff us. OK, we'll tariff you back. What arena do you want to play in? Well, guess what? In response to President Trump's proposed tariffs this morning, a huge announcement from Apple. A historic $500 billion investment in U.S. manufacturing and innovation. The CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, says he is bullish on the future of American innovation. This one deal is expected to create tens of thousands of new jobs and a new manufacturing plant in Texas. God bless Texas. Now, let me say this, by the way, on the issue of tariffs in Canada. There's a movement, was in today's New York Post, that Canadians might be boycotting the United States. Now, I have a message to Canada, too. If you don't appreciate everything the U.S. has been doing for your national defense, and we've been paying the freight for NATO that you've not been paying, and that has helped your economy, and if you want to boo our national anthem because we call you out for not securing your border, or the fact that you have tariffs on our country, it's not going to fly anymore. Friendships have got to work both ways. In Canada, you have a population of a little over 41 million people, and the U.S. has over 340 million people. Now, I'm just saying, I've never supported a boycott my entire career. But if this Boycott America movement from Canada gets legs, then maybe I'll do something I've never done before in my career. Maybe we can start and support a boycott movement of Canada. Let's put the ball back in your court. You might want to rethink this idea. It's better off if we're friends. And while President Trump secures massive investments in the U.S., Elon Musk and Doge continue to identify and eliminate waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption right here at home. An effort that J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon says needs to be done since the government is, quote, inefficient. That's stating the obvious. According to one former DOD insider, Doge is sending, quote, shockwaves through the Pentagon. And over at the EPA, another $67 million of your money in grants for left-wing groups pushing Joe Biden's radical environmental justice mandate. That's gone. And over the weekend, Fox News learned that Border Patrol has now taken control, you got to admit this is funny, of the former USAID headquarters in Washington, D.C. after Elon Musk and Doge exposed the tens of billions of dollars of that organization's wasteful spending. Great. That's money for our kids and grandkids to pay down our debt, create the new generation of weaponry, including an Iron Dome for the country, secure our borders, become energy dominant, bring back law and order. Not a bad agenda. Better alternative. Now, despite all of the work that the president is doing to make our country a better place, the mainstream media, legacy media mob, and liberal political strategists and Democrats, they just don't get it. or they don't want to get it. That's why you're seeing yet another reconfiguration of the mainstream media, and people no longer trust them. Ask yourself, do you really think it's an accident that Chuck Todd, Andrea Mitchell, Norah O'Donnell, Joy Reid, Alex Wagner all pushed either out the door or taking on reduced roles? Ask yourself. In another example, last week, we tried to have a conversation with our old friend James Carville. Now, to me, he's always been more reasonable as a Democrat. Remember Bill Clinton, Al Gore? They talked a lot about ending waste, fraud, and abuse. But frankly, the conversation was more than frustrating. We went back and forth about various numbers, and then he said to fact check them. All right, so we're going to do just that. On the issue, he kept saying, lowest poll numbers ever, anybody, any president in modern history. Not true. Got it wrong. According to the new Harvard-Harris poll just out this very day, President Trump approval rating is 52%, 9 points above water. The poll found that voters are now more optimistic about the direction of the country since the Trump administration took over. And on every major issue, they support the Trump agenda. Despite the disaster Biden left behind, 38% now say the economy is on the right track, which is 10 points higher than it was only last month. In fact, President Trump is outperforming Biden on handling every key issue, including immigration, the economy, inflation, foreign affairs. He is in the 60s and 70s when it comes to government waste, fraud, and abuse, and reducing the cost of government and returning all of that money to you and returning America to a position of strength on the world stage. On the issue of DOGE, a whopping 77% of respondents think that we are in need of a full examination of all government expenditures. Guess James was wrong. But it's not just Harvard-Harris. President Trump is above water in the latest Rasmussen tracking poll, the latest RMG research poll. President Trump's approval rating is 9 points above water, sitting at 53%. In that interview with James Carville, he mentioned the latest CBS poll. He claimed Trump was below 50%. That is not true either. In his most recent poll with them, his approval rating was 53%. And more importantly, look at support for the agenda. Over 80% in the CBS poll supporting deporting criminal illegal aliens. 76% support a full-scale effort to eliminate waste and fraud. 76% support closing the border. Nearly 70% support keeping men out of women's sports and declaring there are only two genders. 65% support ending race-based hiring in government. 63% support a freeze and reevaluation of foreign aid. 61% support reciprocal tariffs. 60% support direct negotiations with Russia to end the war in Ukraine. Nearly 60% support cutting government spending and ending the ban on new offshore drilling. On the deficit, Carville was wrong again. He wanted to be fact-checked. There was more deficit accumulated under President Trump's first term than under any other president in history, he said. Okay, wrong, James. Let's look at the numbers. Under President Trump, the accumulated deficit over 4 years, more than $2 trillion less than it was under Joe Biden. Now, if you take out the fiscal years 2020 and 2021, in other words, the two COVID years, unnaturally high debt accumulated, the total deficit accumulated under Biden was more than double that under Trump. James Carville also talked about USAID and downplayed the tens of billions of dollars of waste in that organization, all for radical left-wing causes and what it would do. But DOGE's work is extended far beyond just USAID. They've terminated nearly $900 million in contracts, over $100 million in DEI training grants at the Department of Education, $250 million in climate and DEI projects, and much more. And they're just getting started. You know, if the radical left Democrats and corrupt media, if they want their agenda to be one of men's rights to play women's sports and putting the rights of illegal immigrants over the safety of the American people and spending hundreds of billions of dollars abroad on the Green New Deal, DEI, woke transgender agenda, well, they picked the wrong hill, in my view, politically to die on. I'm fine with it if that's where they want to be. The left does not want to talk about Donald Trump's accomplishments. They don't want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse going on in our government. And that's what they consider a constitutional crisis. You know, the problem with the left today, if you're asking why all these Trump haters are falling by the wayside all over the corrupt state-run legacy media mob, is because they simply hate Trump. and desperately want him to fail. He fails, the country fails. And this reshuffling strategy of these networks, you know, you're reshuffling the decks of the Titanic, it's not going to work for them. People have too many choices, too many alternatives. And moving forward, I can tell you that you better tell the people truth, like Joe's cognitive state, like the border was never secure, like inflation was never transitory. Breaking tonight, a judge has sided with the Trump administration and is not overturning their ban on the AP in the White House press pool. And the White House released a statement following the ruling. It said in part, quote, "As we have said from the beginning, asking the President of the United States questions in the Oval Office and aboard Air Force One is a privilege granted to journalists, not a legal right."
What, no last name? Good evening, everyone. So over the weekend, MSNBC canceled Joy Reid's TV show. And according to the network, all of her wigs were quickly released back into the wild. There they go. When asked about her future plans, Ms. Reid claims she plans on spending more time with her family, accusing her relatives of racism. Elon Musk said all federal employees have to send an email saying what they accomplished in the past week. Musk said, "I'll start. I fathered 5 different kids." Probably true. Hooters is reportedly preparing for bankruptcy. "Now will I get lunch?" asked one man. It's pretty ironic, though, that Hooters is going tits up. Oh. I know. You know, that was not necessary. I could have just moved on. Donald Trump is looking to sell off the Nancy Pelosi Federal Building in San Francisco. Yeah. It's in pretty good shape, too, having been maintained by the same construction company that built her face. Tiny people. A wild brawl broke out at the Spirit Airlines gate at the Atlanta airport. As punishment, every Spirit passenger was allowed to board their flight. After a trans female basketball player missed her game, the team ended up losing by 26 points. But on the bright side, they didn't have to shower in their uniforms afterward. That's a good joke. A large number of Asian voters in San Francisco have announced they are walking away from the Democratic Party. Well, thank God they're not driving away, or we'd all be in danger. Oh, racist, applauding a racist? You're terrible. According to Chris Christie, the Trump administration is a clown car. And after saying that, he left in his car. Finally, the Yankees have lifted their decades-old no facial hair policy. Wow, now I can finally play in New York, said one woman. All right. It's a sad moment for the show. Joy Reid is out. Of course, we're heartbroken, for she provided this show with more material than a seamstress at The View. On slow news days, Joy was always there to help with a racist rant. Oh, I loved her. Remember these golden oldies?
We do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men. What they're saying is we own this country and everyone will bow down to us.
In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears.
Now, I don't like to use hyperbole, but Joy's firing is the biggest blow to racists since the Confederacy lost. Because not only did cable news lose a bigot, but the bigot herself might finally get the round-the-clock care that she really needs. But you got to wonder how she was able to last this long. The irony, of course, is in her name, for did Joy bring any joy to anyone's life? No. Oh, I didn't know this was a call and response show. But think about it. I'm willing to bet no one ever said, you know, I was going through a tough period in my life. And listening to Joy Reid really got me through it. If anything, it was their tough periods in life that got them through Joy Reid. But that's the problem with MSNBC and legacy media. Their income was based on making life worse. Instead of focusing on real stuff, they created hoaxes, ones that sowed division and hopelessness. Now, Joy's firing came on the heels of MSNBC's parent company, NBC Universal, settling a $30 million defamation lawsuit with a Georgia gynecologist. I know, Georgia. In 2020, the network reported that the doctor working at an ICE detention center was performing unwanted hysterectomies on immigrant women. The network called the doctor the uterus collector. I know, that was my nickname in college. Here's how they reported it.
Just to underscore that, the allegation here is that this is a federal facility, and they have been sending immigrant women in their care, in their custody, to a doctor who has removed their reproductive organs for no medical reason and without them consenting to it.
The nurse says that detained women told her they didn't fully understand why they were undergoing hysterectomies.
You talk about in the complaint a hearing from women who are detained there, talking about a specific doctor performing hysterectomies, referring to him as a uterus collector.
Oh, yeah. Chris Hayes was one of those who peddled this story about the uterus collector, but his only proof was that his was missing. And yes, the story sounds horrible, almost too horrible to be believed. But for people in legacy media who suspend common sense on all things Trump, it was just too good to check. It had to be true, but it wasn't. And the tip-off right away is that these hacks would actually condemn a doctor forcibly collecting uteruses, because when it comes to kids, it's lovingly called gender affirmation care. And you'd think the fact that no one else was reporting this might have been another clue for these great investigative journalists. Although calling Nicole Wallace, Chris Hayes, and Rachel Maddow journalists is like calling Stacey Abrams, Jerry Nadler, and J.B. Pritzker plus-size models. So how far were they off? Well, the judge in the case states that there's undisputed evidence has been established that there were no mass hysterectomies at the facility, and the doctor is not, quote, a uterus collector. So other than that, their reporting was perfect. So MSNBC has reportedly decided to settle up rather than risk a trial. But you still got to wonder how this story, this hoax, got this far. Well, what was the point of the hoax in the first place? To damage Trump and his determination to finally tighten the border. They wanted to believe it was true. You know, like when I told that flight attendant it was a war injury. The anchors just loved the idea that there was a sinister doctor forcibly removing uteruses so that these women couldn't have kids after entering the U.S. It's so evil, so fascist, so Trumpian. Seriously, how soon will Hollywood make a movie of that? The evil doctor could be played by Kevin Spacey. Yeah, and the uterus could be played by Peter Dinklage. It makes no sense. Don't try to make sense of it. But again, how did they fall for this garbage? Well, first, maybe they felt that if they were wrong, of course, no one would check. But also, any belief system is a continuum. And if you go far enough out with it, you can arrive at a very bad place, especially if you already start at a bad place. Like, say, Trump is Hitler.
Yeah.
Like Trump, Hitler was also viewed as a clown, a goon, who could be kept in line. It was blatant fascism meets the Jerry Springer show. If that sounds vaguely familiar, that's because it is. Similarities to what happened in Germany and what's happening now in America are just undeniable. Violent, terrifying, and sometimes bizarre conspiracy theories that set the table for maybe armed resistance to a Kamala Harris win or mass acceptance of American fascism.
Let me know when you guys are finished fighting amongst yourselves who I got to vote for in November to keep Hitler out the White House. If it's Biden in a coma, I'm going to vote for Biden in a coma.
You'd vote for Biden in a coma. But why not? You did the same thing in 2020. Meanwhile, coma patients are blinking out Morse code for, come on, guys, we're not that bad. Amazing. But you can see how Joy laid the groundwork for the hoax. So what's left of MSNBC? Well, they're replacing Joy with a 3-person panel. So if it's a slow news day, they can call each other racist. Which raises the other question. Maddow and the others pushed the uterus story. Reid did not. So why is Joy fired and the rest of them aren't? Is it because they're all white? I mean, here's a case where Joy can actually cry racism. And finally, for once, it might be true. Let's welcome tonight's guest. He was in the movie 50 Shades of White. Fox News contributor Tom Shalhoub. Her stances are courageous and her laugh is contagious. Host of the Michelle Tafoya podcast, Michelle Tafoya. The hospital gown that won't close was his idea. Host of Ask Dr. Drew on Rumble, Dr. Drew Pinsky. And she can cover about and make liberals tap out. Host of Outkick the Morning, Charlie Arnold. I want to just play an up-to-date clip of Joy Reid responding to her firing. Do we have that? Let's play that.
And that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV.
Now I feel sad. I'm just kidding. It's really hard, Tom, to feel sympathy for somebody who demonized millions of people, who put targets on people's back by calling them racist, white supremacists, or Tom Shalhoubs.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the only one she let off the hook was Hitler. I didn't know that. You know, that was amazing. That from that monologue, she was like, oh, Hitler was also known as a clown who could be kept in line. I don't remember reading about that. Like, what German generals were like, oh, the Führer, he's such a clown. Didn't happen. But I do now, after seeing her cry, I do feel bad for her. I mean, at least she kept things interesting. I don't know who they're going to replace her with. Maybe, you know, we had Jen Psaki went from the White House to MSNBC. Maybe, you know, you got Morning Joe. What about Evening Joe? Evening Joe, but I mean Evening Sleepy Joe. Oh. Why not? He'd be like, welcome to No Malarkey. Tonight's top stories, I'm still alive. And I don't mean Joe. I mean, like, give the show to me.
Oh. That's good, yes. You want Joe.
I would watch some of that for sure. So, Michelle, do you get a sense that, like, MSNBC, this is not a drastic change. They're unloading the baggage. But it doesn't feel like, oh, we're moving to the middle with the replacements. I mean, Simone Sanders, Michael Steele, is that his name, Michael Steele? I can't remember. Never Trumper. I mean, these are all the same.
Right.
It's the same characters.
It's, yeah, I came from the NBC family. My most recent television job in sports was the NBC family. And so I know some of the people who are involved in some of this stuff. And I think that they would like to move at least to the middle. They would like to reflect more of America. But as you said, I don't know that this trio necessarily does that because they're all of one mind. Mm-hmm. But I want to get to that uterus collector story, too, because that name is incredible, right? And it reminds me of Covington. Mm-hmm. Remember?
Yes.
Our friend, I can't remember his name now.
Guy who won a lot of money off CNN.
A lot of money.
Yes.
Nicholas Sandmann.
Yeah.
And it reminds me also of when AOC went to the border and cried and said that people were drinking water out of toilets.
Yes.
Now, that was never proven either, but she was allowed to say that.
Yeah, and she said it like it was a bad thing.
But we also have George Stephanopoulos and that $15 million settlement about the rape thing. And we've got, so the lawsuits are starting to kind of pile up. And I think that networks are going, you know, we don't want to have to give away all this money all of the time, and it's hurting us a lot.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot going on with this network. It's hard for me to see it going too far to the right, but I think some people want to nudge it that way.
Yeah, I don't see it. You drew your fingers up. That means
It means I want to speak. But to follow what Michelle was saying, that these hoaxes, with what they are too on the nose.
Yes.
And they've been successful for the last 8 years. They've taken things that are so on the nose, they are outrageous and impossible to be true, and somebody has pushed them forward as truth, and they've succeeded, so they're continuing to run after them until the legal system steps in. Thank God that physician sued them.
Yes.
Because his life could be ruined by... And these people need to be put on notice. They harm people with the things they say, and that must stop. Also, one other thing. Yeah. Big day today. Big day today. This is the day that Keith Olbermann and Greg Gutfeld agreed. Read out due to racism.
Yes, exactly. Is that what he said?
He said that.
Oh, my goodness. See, I also think that what weird timing it is that this, that this came out and you saw all of these liberals getting fired. Do you think that when they saw this, they read the writing on the wall? Charlie, you're going to be here all week. It's good if you agree. You should agree with me.
No, I mean, of course I'm going to agree with you. Of course. I have no other option, right? No, the bar has been set very high. And there is beautiful irony in all of this. You said it in the open. I mean, her name's Joy.
Yes.
This news quite literally bringing all of us joy.
Finally.
Not to mention, we can't ignore the fact, everyone, it is Black History Month.
That's true.
To be a woman of color and get fired during Black History Month, you really have to be bad.
Yes. Yeah.
But it makes sense, though. I mean, the latest domino to fall as far as the leftist characters go, Drew, you said it. I mean, for years, these people have been able to say exactly whatever they wanted. No one questioned them. No one could push back because, A, people had no idea what was fact and what was false in some cases because there was no transparency in our government, so they could get away with murder. And then, B, the people that did understand what was real and not were too scared to say anything. But we've entered such a different era where Trump is not afraid to call BS on anybody. I mean, we're in the golden era, everybody.
Age. You know what? It's right, though. Her firing Joy Reid, like, during Black History Month, that's like firing Chris Christie on Fat Tuesday.
So, I mean, bye-bye, Joy Reid. Hello, actual Joy.
Yes. All right, we must move on. Up next, Elon wants proof federal workers aren't goofs.